Hello, I'm Pastor Ari Mattson from Martin Luther Church at 93rd and Blue Mound in Milwaukee. And this is AfterWords for January 29th, 2012. This past Sunday, January 29th, I preached on Mark chapter 1. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about the lesson from 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 1 through 13. At first read, this reading seems a little strange perhaps to us in these days. Paul is writing to a divided church in Corinth. They're fighting about a bunch of things. And the argument they're having here is over food, which may seem strange to us today. But the argument that they're having is whether or not it's okay to eat food that has been sacrificed to false gods. Is that somehow tainted? Does it curse the food? Does it somehow mean that they're being unchristian if they eat that food? And what's really interesting about this argument is that Paul doesn't take either side, really. He kind of takes the middle ground. And what he says is, yeah, technically there's nothing different about that food. It's just food. Whether or not it's been sacrificed to another god or not, it's still food. It's not going to do anything to you. But what he says in this is that, however, if eating that food confuses some of the other believers, those that may think that maybe you're actually obeying that other god or worshiping that other god by doing it, then maybe you shouldn't do it. What's really interesting in the way he approaches this is basically what he's saying is that the most important thing here is to preserve the relationships. It's about being loving in the relationships with the people in your congregation. I think this is interesting because he basically says the most important thing is not being right. It's not winning this argument. The most important thing is to think about the ways that we interact. See, we as Christians are called to live in community. We are called to live in relationship with other people. Just as God is in relationship with God's self and the person of the Trinity, as God created us to be in relationship to us, we are also called to be in relationship not only to God, but to one another. Our faith can't be fully lived out except in relation to one another. And so Paul, I think, challenges us to remember that being right is not always the best thing. We can be right and still be wrong, or we can be right and still lose. What we need to do is to think about those times that maybe we need to let go and think about preserving the relationship. Think about doing what's best for the other person, doing what's best for the community as a whole, instead of just doing what's best for me or just trying to prove my point and cram it down someone else's throat. So my challenge for you is to think about ways that we can be loving more often than being right. Thanks for taking the time to watch this, and I hope you have a good and blessed week.